Hello and welcome to the Sprint 133 review. I will do the intro right here. Carol will update us on the community. Harpreet will update us on the UI. Adam will give us an update on providers, and Joe V will update us on the platform. So turning it over to Carol.
Thank you, Oleg. So for community update, first up, we have a great announcement post by Oleg regarding milestones, release cadence, and Kasparov. So we plan to move to a faster release cadence, which is approximately once every 3 months. And you can follow our development process with a link to the ManageIQ roadmap on GitHub, which is in the blog post. And also read about the amazing achievements of chess champion Garry Kasparov, which the ManageIQ K release will be named after. In addition, VLcek 4 update has been released. So check out all this information on the website and blog. Thank you, and the next slide, please.
Thanks, Carol. Hello, everyone. Total of 36 PRs were merged across the UI and API repos. That includes 5 enhancements, 11 bug fixes, and so on. I have all the bug fixes and enhancements listed here with the links to their respective PRs. And I also have a couple of slides with the screenshots to go over some of the major PRs. So next slide, please. So in this PR, a new React Patternfly component was implemented to remove items from database using REST API. With this change on the confirmation model, along with the standard message, now user will be able to see the names of one or more items selected to be removed. If you look at the screenshot on the left, that is a model with the generic confirmation message. And on the right, you can see the new improved confirmation model in React that uses API to delete items and also shows the names of the items that were marked to be deleted. Next slide, please. A bug was fixed in hosts area. So for example, if a user tried to edit one or more hosts under a cluster after editing when pressing save or cancel buttons, user was redirected back to list of all hosts as seen on the screenshot on the left side. After the fix, user is now redirected back to the list of hosts for a specified cluster, as you can see on the screenshot on the right side. Next slide, please. And on the API side, a new subcollection was added for hosts to get its custom attributes. Here in the screenshot, you can see the command that returns list of 2 custom attributes for the host. And that's all I have for the UI. Over to Ed.
Thanks, Harpreet. For the providers, the big news this sprint was that we added graph refresh to the last 2 managers that hadn't converted over to it yet. So the Swift Storage Manager and the OpenStack Infra Manager, which is the undercloud, we're both still using legacy refresh. They've now been converted over to graph refresh, had the previous one removed, and that allowed us to start kicking off a lot of cleanup that we've been planning for a long time. So after that, we were able to remove about 350 lines of core refresh code, as well as almost all of the configuration options for refresh. So now, before there used to be a bunch of if conditions, like if this is using graph refresh, do this, otherwise do the other thing. Now we just have one way of doing it. It also allowed us to clean up about 1,500 lines from the various provider plugins. So if you want to look at a list of all the changes that went into this, there's that issue that has the full list. Sorry, my cat's freaking out behind me. Hold on. Yeah, so it was a long time coming, but we recently just resolved that issue in this sprint. Next slide, please. All right, on Amazon, Dan Berger fixed a bug where pagination wasn't being used after we switched to the AWS SDK version 3. So that prevented objects after the first 100, which is the default page size, from being returned. So we fixed that up. That was a nice bug fix. Roberto added the ability to resize and over VMs disks. Previous sprints, we added the ability to add and remove disks, I believe. So now you can also resize them. And for the VMware provider, we added the ability to link VMware VMs to NSX-T networks. So if you have an NSX provider, there are equivalent, they're called opaque networks that show up in the vSphere provider. And now we can link VMware VMs NICs to those NSX-T networks. And that's it for providers. Next slide, over to Jovi.
Thank you, Adam. 35 PRs were merged across the platform space with this sprint, the highlights of which are, starting with the enhancements, NIC contributed a few. One, to add additional privilege escalation methods to align with the output from the Ansible doc command. Another, to add Kafka connection information for worker containers. One, to add Kafka and Zookeeper deployments for messaging, as well as the related services, volume claims, and secrets. And another, to allow productization of our image builds by adding the hooks URL for build time consumption. Adam added Kafka as an option for prototype QType. Drew contributed enhancements to our CLI tools by allowing the server settings to be set once for all servers. And Libor contributed an enhancement to improve logging required request ID by populating it for services without a server. And Mark Lee contributed an enhancement to allow MIQ codification lifecycle management from a single operator. And Tatoe contributed multiple enhancements to our build. Next slide, please. And on to bugs. Adam removed the journal D logger to resolve some seg faults. NIC fixed one to prevent separate generic workers from picking up individual states where only one of them will have the running Ansible runner process the query. He fixed the PostgreSQL backup and restore scripts and added the ability to print which backup is being restored. And NIC fixed an issue where dep ensure was complaining about non-existing repo by having the package name match its location. And Dan fixed an issue where it was not possible to create an embedded Ansible provider in the maintenance zone, which I think we overlapped there. And Nick L. and Jason contributed improvements to our continuous integration and testing framework, including improvements to the MIQ bot. Next slide, please. And on to platform. Technical debt. Nick C. addressed some technical debt with Podified Manage IQ by moving from dep to Go modules. This change will enable running the operator SDK build without the repo living in the Go path. And lastly, Keenan and Tatoe contributed to the Ruby and Rails 5.2 upgrade effort with a couple of PRs. And that's it for the platform space.
All righty. And so that brings us to a conclusion here of Sprint 133. I do want to say that we are working on releasing Yansa Alpha. So you should see that in the coming days. We're pretty close, and I'm pretty excited about that. So we will sync up in 2 weeks and give you a review of the next sprint. Thanks, everyone.